My name is Aubrey, 32 years old, living in a peaceful town in the state of Oregon. From the outside, my life once seemed like the kind many dreamed of, a small white house with a spacious porch, climbing roses blooming in the summer, and a husband who always wore a gentle smile. I met Ryan right after finishing my MBA and returning home to help my father with the family's real estate business. At the time, he was a delivery driver for a local company, his face sun-kissed and his eyes always shining with optimism. We met in a simple way. While I was delivering contracts to a client, my car broke down on the road. Ryan stopped to help without expecting anything in return. At first, my parents were cautious when they found out I was dating a man from a different background. But Ryan was tactful, always humble and, above all, had a way of making everyone feel at ease around him. Gradually, he won over my entire family. I remember clearly the first night I brought him home for dinner. As we left, my mother leaned in and whispered, "That young man is thoughtful, sweetheart." We got married when I turned 29. The wedding wasn't grand, but it was warm, with just family and a few close friends. On our wedding night, Ryan whispered in my ear, his voice trembling with emotion, "I'll do everything to make you happy." And at that moment, I believed him. With all my heart. Our early married life truly made me think I had chosen the right person. On autumn evenings, Ryan and I would wrap ourselves in blankets on the porch, sipping hot coffee and listening to the wind rustling through the maple trees. On weekends, we drove down to the Willamette Valley, stopping by small vineyards to taste local wine. Ryan often joked, "As long as you're with me, anywhere feels like paradise." I never mentioned degrees or status when I was with Ryan. I did my best to make sure the gap between us never became a burden. Whenever my father invited Ryan to business dinners, or offered him a desk job at the company, Ryan always politely declined with a soft smile. "Thank you, sir, but I want to find my own path." I respected that. Ryan worked hard, and the calluses on his hands were proof of his effort. He woke up at 5 a.m. to make his first delivery, and some nights he didn't get home until nearly 9 p.m. Even when he was tired, he always took the time to ask, "How was your day? Are you okay?" The way he looked at me made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. Honestly, I used to believe that love was enough. I thought our different backgrounds or social positions would never come between us. Every time Ryan held my hand in public or kissed my forehead when we were alone, I felt more certain of my choice. We went through days that felt unbreakable together, but I never imagined that behind those gentle looks and sweet promises, a quiet storm had already begun to form, just waiting for the day to sweep away everything I tried to protect. We had been married for more than a year, and the seemingly perfect days began to show small cracks. They seemed insignificant at first, but enough to leave me uneasy. Every night as I lay in bed staring at the bedroom ceiling under the soft glow of the nightlight, I found myself counting the months that had passed instead of savoring the present. Ryan no longer held my hand as often. His caring questions in the evenings became rare. Instead, he often gazed out our bedroom window where the streetlights cast quiet streaks of light. I felt the distance between us growing, like an invisible, chilling wall. One night, as I was cleaning up the kitchen after dinner, Ryan came in with a heavy expression, avoiding my gaze. His voice dropped, losing its familiar warmth. "Have you ever thought about why we still don't have a baby?" I froze. The plate in my hand nearly slipped, but I managed to set it in the sink. Taking a deep breath, I turned to face him. "Ryan, I worry too. But let's not put pressure on ourselves, okay? It's only been a little over a year." He shook his head, his tone sharp despite trying to hold back. "A year is a long time, Aubrey. Haven't you read about it? People get pregnant within less than a year. What about us? Where do you think the problem is?" My heart sank. I didn't blame him for worrying. I had spent many sleepless nights quietly counting days myself. But the way he asked, as if blaming me, left me choked up. I chose my words carefully, keeping my voice steady. "Ryan, why don't we both go get checked? Maybe it's just something small. We can work through it together. What matters is that we're in this together." He met my gaze, and there was a coldness in his eyes I had never seen before. "Both get checked? What do you mean? You think I'm the problem? You're trying to pin this on me, aren't you?" I was speechless, his words slicing through me like a blade. I had never thought of blaming him. I just wanted us to face this hand in hand. "I didn't mean that," I said quietly, my heart tightening. "I just want us to figure this out together." "I never said it's your fault." He gave a bitter laugh, shook his head, and walked out of the kitchen. "Forget it, Aubrey. You always know how to make things sound reasonable. But the truth? This is obviously a woman's issue, my mother said so. The chill of the kitchen matched the numbness that kept me still. My hand gripped the edge of the counter so tightly that my nails dug into the wood. His words echoed in my ears, each one striking my heart. From that day Ryan truly changed. He started coming home late. At first he'd text, busy at work, helping a coworker. But gradually even those messages stopped. I sat alone at the dining table, dinner gone cold, the ticking of the wall clock becoming an ache in my head. One night he came home when the clock showed it was nearly 1 a.m. The smell of alcohol filled the room as he opened the bedroom door. I sat up and gently asked, "Where have you been so late, Ryan?" He threw his keys on the table and took off his jacket without looking at me. "I went out to unwind. Every man needs to blow off steam, don't make a big deal out of it." I said nothing more. At that moment I knew that saying anything else would only make things worse. Every night I lay there listening to the door slam, his staggering footsteps in the dark, the heavy breathing of a man who was becoming a stranger. And the next morning I still got up early to make him coffee like always, telling myself that everything would pass, that my love would be enough to bring him back, but deep down, I knew I was only comforting myself. The following days passed in a blur. Ryan came home less and less, and whenever he did his eyes avoided mine. His smile was forced, and polite small talk replaced the care that once made me feel like the most important person in the world. I kept trying. Every night, I still waited with dinner ready, still texted to check in, still held on to the hope that maybe he was just stressed, that if I stayed patient a little longer, everything would be okay. But the more I endured, the clearer I felt that the distance between us had become a chasm. Until one Sunday afternoon, when I had just returned from a business trip, suitcase in hand, stepping into the living room, I saw Ryan's phone lying on the table. The screen kept lighting up with messages from someone named Emily. I didn't mean to snoop, I really didn't. But then, a call came through, the ringtone echoing through the empty house, and Emily's name appeared clearly on the screen. My hand trembled as I picked it up, only intending to explain that Ryan wasn't home. But the woman's voice on the other end froze the blood in my veins. "Ryan, how much longer are you going to keep me waiting? I've already booked the restaurant. If you're afraid your wife will find out, just say so. I'll go by myself." I was paralyzed. In that single second, all the hope I had clung to collapsed like a sandcastle hit by a violent wave. I didn't respond, just quietly ended the call and set the phone back on the table. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from pain. That evening, I still cooked dinner like every other day. Ryan walked in around 8 p.m., eyes avoiding mine, a faint smell of alcohol as he took off his jacket. I smiled, trying to hide the storm inside. "Did you eat yet?" He shook his head and said curtly, "I'm not hungry, you go ahead." I pretended to clean up and took the chance to check his phone. My heart clenched when I saw a string of messages from Emily. Words of love, promises, selfies of the two of them at a bar, on the street, even in a hotel. I carefully took screenshots of every message, every picture, every date they planned. I emailed them all to my personal account, keeping the evidence as my final line of defense. My hands were cold, but I went through it all with a strange calm, as if I wasn't myself anymore. In the days that followed, I lived between two worlds. By day, I went to work, smiled at coworkers, fulfilled my duties as the daughter preparing to take over the family's real estate business. By night, I quietly documented every piece of betrayal Ryan left behind. From unfamiliar restaurant receipts in his jacket pocket to note scraps he forgot to destroy. One evening as I was tidying up the living room, Ryan left his phone on the table and went to shower. I saw the screen light up. "Same place tonight, I miss you." A message from Emily. I stared at that message for a long time, my heart tightening. At this point, what was I still hoping for? I had all the evidence I needed. I was only waiting for the right moment to end things with someone who no longer belonged to this family. I had thought I would be the one to speak first. So many nights lying silently next to Ryan, listening to his tired sighs, or the chill in his silence, I had asked myself, when would we face the truth? But in the end, it was Ryan who shattered the fragile shell of our marriage. It was an evening in mid-October, when the fallen leaves had turned the little road to our house golden. Ryan came home earlier than usual, without a trace of alcohol, without any rush, his face calm to the point of being frightening. We sat across from each other at the dining table, the warm light shining over the wooden table that had witnessed so many family meals over the past 3 years. Ryan lightly tapped his fingers on the table, then spoke evenly, as if discussing business. Aubrey, I think it's time we stop. I wasn't surprised. Deep down, I had been waiting for those words for far too long. But his calmness made my heart ache, not from regret, but from realizing that the man who once promised to protect me for life could so easily let go. I looked straight into his eyes, the eyes that had once made me feel safe, now empty. You want a divorce? Ryan nodded. I think it would be better for both of us. We both know there's nothing left to save. I was silent for a few seconds, then replied in a soft but firm voice. All right, go ahead and prepare the papers. Maybe Ryan hadn't expected me to agree so quickly. I saw a flicker of confusion in his eyes, but he quickly regained his confidence. I'll handle it. I don't want to drag this out or make it hard for you. I smiled. A smile I wasn't even sure was sad or relieved. Don't worry, I don't want to keep anything except my dignity. Just a week later, Ryan brought home a neat stack of documents, everything prepared and ready for me to sign right there at the kitchen counter. I'll move out. You can stay here without worry. I shook my head. No need. I'll go stay with my parents for a while. I don't want to stay in a place filled with memories that now only feels empty. The day I left, a light rain fell, the droplets clinging to the window like forgotten tears. I packed my things in silence. No tears, no blame, just a strange peace settling inside me. My parents welcomed me back with warm embraces and worried eyes. Even though I tried to appear strong, I knew they saw the deep fatigue etched into me. My mother held my hand for a long time as I sat at the dinner table that evening, our first meal together in years, with me returning as a woman who had just lost her home. My father, stern and quiet, simply nodded, but his gaze carried silent love. He spoke only one short sentence, but it was enough to make me feel I wasn't alone. He did the right thing. In the days that followed, I buried myself in work. I took on more projects, refused no meeting or business trip. Each morning as I stepped into the office, looking at the blueprints, plans, and contracts, I felt that I still had value, that I was still worthy of my father's trust, my colleagues' respect, and my own belief in myself. At night, exhausted in bed, I reminded myself, I was on the right path. I had chosen the road that gave me freedom. But deep in sleep, I sometimes still dreamed of those old evenings when Ryan held me tight and whispered promises he ultimately broke. The months after the divorce from Ryan passed like a fast-forward film, filled with scenes of relentless work and quiet evenings by my bedroom window. I threw myself into work as if it were the only way to fill the emptiness inside. Each morning, standing before the mirror, I told myself, Aubrey, you still matter. You still have a life ahead of you. My parents quietly supported me. My father, though a man of few words, waited in the yard every time I came back from long business trips, nodding once, his eyes full of pride. My mother, gentler, often left little notes in my purse. You're doing so well, sweetheart. Don't forget to love yourself. The family company began trusting me with bigger projects. I joined the expansion of our office rental chain in the Seattle area, then supervised the construction of a new shopping center in Portland. Long meetings, site visits late into the night. They all drained me, but they also revived my spirit. I no longer whispered Ryan's name in my dreams. Instead, I dreamed of newly completed buildings, of teammates shaking hands under office lights. It was during that time that I reconnected with Colin, a former colleague who had left years before and now returned as director of a new branch. Colin was a few years older than me, tall with a calm voice and steady gaze that made people feel at ease. At first, I saw him only as a trustworthy teammate. We worked together on a project to develop an office complex in San Jose. Colin never mentioned my past, never pried about the divorce. He simply listened and offered thoughtful input, always respectful. Once, after a tense meeting with a partner, I stayed behind in the conference room, staring down at the lake outside the building, feeling strangely hollow. Colin quietly set a cup of hot tea in front of me, said nothing, and sat with me, looking out at the water. That silence meant more to me than 1,000 comforting words. Late-night work sessions gradually turned into simple dinners after hours. We talked about work, about Colin's favorite books, about trips I'd dreamed of but never taken. One late evening as we stepped out of the office together, it suddenly began to rain. He took off his jacket to shield me, then smiled and said, Aubrey, sometimes life is like the rain. You can't avoid it, but it's warmer when someone walks with you. Those words made my heart stir after so many months of feeling frozen. We grew closer naturally, like breathing. No rush, no grand promises, just step by step. I felt cherished, heard, truly respected. Nearly a year after signing the divorce papers, Colin and I held a small warm wedding at an old church on the outskirts of town. That day my mother gripped my hand tightly, her eyes brimming with tears but filled with happiness. My father stood quietly, then clapped Colin on the shoulder. "Take care of my daughter." 3 months after the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. It was a morning in May, sunlight streaming through the curtains, and when I held the test result in my hand, I cried. Tears of joy, of relief after so many years of hope, disappointment, and hope again. Colin embraced me as I shakily showed him the result. He said nothing, just kissed my forehead and whispered, Thank you for believing in us." I knew I was truly stepping into a new chapter where no old shadows lingered, where love was built on the solid ground of empathy and companionship. Life with Colin brought me the peaceful days I had once dreamed of. We lived simply in a small house on the outskirts of Seattle, where in the mornings we heard birds sing, and in the evenings we walked hand in hand beneath rows of fiery red maples each autumn. At over 5 months pregnant, my health was steady and my spirit brighter than ever. It was Colin who suggested I take a break before the final stage of pregnancy, so we booked a getaway at a luxury resort by the San Diego coast, a place I'd never been but had long heard about. That morning, Colin and I went down to the hotel lobby for a late breakfast. The large lobby was filled with natural light, soft piano music floated through the air, and the scent of jasmine drifted from fresh floral arrangements everywhere. I felt truly fortunate. The old sadness faded like a distant blurry dream. But then in the moment I felt so light-hearted, a voice sounded behind me making me freeze. Unbelievable. Aubrey, what a coincidence. I turned around, and just as the voice had suggested, standing before me was none other than Ryan. He remained in place, still carrying that old confident air, now with a slicker look, pressed dress shirt, stylish glasses, and his hand clasping that of a young woman with carefully done makeup and a smug smile. Ryan raised his eyebrows, his gaze sweeping over my belly before settling on my face as if trying to read me. "Let me introduce you," he said in a tone trying to sound friendly. "This is Brooklyn, my new wife. She's the daughter of Mr. Simmons, the chairman of Simmons Holdings." I simply smiled lightly, saying nothing. Brooklyn gripped Ryan's hand tighter, her eyes flashing with a hint of triumph. "Hello, I've heard Ryan mention you before," she said, her voice sugary sweet but with clear arrogance. Ryan continued, his smile widening, unable to hide his smugness. "Life is funny, isn't it? They say after the storm comes the rainbow. I feel like I'm standing under my rainbow now." Colin stepped up, resting his hand gently on my back, his gaze steady but calm. His presence felt like an invisible shield, making me stand even firmer. Facing Ryan, I spoke evenly. "Congratulations. I've heard of Simmons Holdings for a long time. Don't they lease space in the downtown tower?" Ryan inclined his head slightly, pride gleaming in his gaze. "That's right, Brooklyn likes to joke that the whole city knows her father's company." I tilted my head slightly, my smile still gentle. "Oh, that building. My father finalized the purchase 3 months ago. I believe I heard that Simmons Holdings still owes over 6 months' rent. Colin mentioned it to me the other day." The space seemed to freeze for a moment. Brooklyn blinked rapidly while Ryan stiffened. His smug smile faded, replaced by unmistakable unease. "You're joking, right?" Brooklyn said, but her voice was starting to tremble. I shook my head, my tone soft but firm. "No, if I'm not mistaken, my father's legal office sent the final reminder yesterday. We always want to maintain good relationships with tenants, as long as they keep their commitments." Colin gave my hand a gentle squeeze, just enough to remind me he was right there with me, facing this together. I met Ryan's gaze one last time, my voice calm but resolute. "Enjoy your vacation. Oh, and if Simmons Holdings needs assistance, feel free to contact our legal team. They'd be happy to help." I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, floundering in the undercurrent of truth just revealed. As Colin and I left the hotel lobby without looking back, I could still sense Ryan and Brooklyn frozen behind us. The sharp sound of Brooklyn's heels echoed, breaking the suffocating air. "Wait!" Brooklyn's voice rang out, trembling with both anger and fear. "What do you mean by that? Are you trying to smear my family's name?" I stopped and turned to face them, my expression calm. Colin's hand at my back was a silent reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. "No one's smearing anyone," I replied evenly. "Sometimes the truth is just hard to accept. Brooklyn, I'm sure you know your family's company situation better than I do. Ryan glanced at Brooklyn, his earlier confidence gone, replaced by confusion. Brooklyn, what's going on? He asked, his voice dropping. Brooklyn swallowed hard, her eyes on the marble floor. I don't know. My dad hasn't talked about work much lately, but it's true, I've heard him getting frustrated over finances recently. Ryan's face fell. He gritted out, trying to salvage some pride. Anyway, whatever's between me and Brooklyn has nothing to do with you, Aubrey. Don't think a few words from you will bother me. I only smiled, placing a hand on my belly. A natural gesture, but enough to render them both speechless. Ryan, I said, my voice warm but firm, you're right. What's between us no longer matters. But since you asked, I'll share so you can rest easy. I'm pregnant, 5 months along, and I'm truly happy with Colin. For a moment Ryan's gaze shattered. Brooklyn turned to him, her face tense. What did you tell me? I thought you divorced her because she couldn't have kids. Ryan stammered, his hand clenching into a fist. I didn't know about that. Brooklyn let out a bitter laugh, her voice laced with scorn. Bravo, Ryan. So you gave up your marriage chasing some fantasy, and I got dragged into this mess. I said nothing more. Everything that needed to be said was clear as day. Colin gently led me away, but I could still hear the argument behind us, each word tearing through the hotel's elegant atmosphere. My dad said the company's just facing temporary trouble. Everything will be fine, Brooklyn shouted. Fine? Look around you. Even the building still owes rent. Who do you think still trusts Simmons Holdings? Ryan's voice was nearly desperate. We walked farther, leaving the chaos behind. Back in our room, I sank into a chair, my hand resting on my belly, feeling the tiny heartbeat within. Colin sat down beside me, his eyes soft as they met mine. Are you okay? I nodded, a relieved smile spreading across my lips. I'm really okay, Colin. Maybe for the first time in my life I feel like the shadows of the past no longer hold me. Colin took my hand, his eyes full of trust and love. We have a long road ahead, Aubrey, and I promise, I'll walk it with you. Outside the window, the evening sun stretched golden over the deep blue sea. I closed my eyes, feeling the simple happiness I had worked so hard for all these years to find again. After the trip to San Diego, I returned to daily life, my heart lighter, as if I'd finally set down one last burden. What happened in that hotel lobby felt like fate's final farewell, closing a chapter I should have ended long ago. A few weeks later, news about Simmons Holdings began flooding major financial channels. Once praised as a pillar of the local economy, Simmons Holdings became the center of a financial scandal. First came reports of undisclosed loans the company had tried to hide. Then a wave of investigations revealed they had repeatedly mortgaged the same assets to secure funding, leading to a liquidity crisis. The company's stock price plummeted, branches shut down one after another, and employees protested over unpaid wages. I happened to see Ryan and Brooklyn on TV during a report about the scandal. They appeared exhausted, standing behind the closed glass doors of company headquarters. I saw no pride left in Ryan's eyes, only emptiness and confusion. Once, I caught my father's worried glance as he flipped through documents on Simmons Holdings in his office. I stepped in, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, Dad, this'll pass. He looked at me, his expression softening, and nodded. I'm not worried about the assets, I worry about you. But seeing how strong you are now, I'm at ease. His words warmed my heart. The truth was, I felt no satisfaction seeing Ryan and Brooklyn fall into such a state. I only felt pity for people who chose the wrong path, and for the version of myself who once placed all my faith in someone unworthy. My life now focused entirely on my little family and work. Every morning, Colin and I prepared breakfast together, listened to soft music, and talked about the day's plans. My father began gradually handing over major decisions at the company, and I felt confident taking the lead. Not because I was his daughter, but because I was ready. At 7 months pregnant, I felt every tiny kick inside me as a reminder of what truly mattered, the future. Every night, Colin and I placed our hands on my belly, whispering words of love to the baby soon to arrive. One time, while I was inspecting a new project site, a young employee asked me, "Aren't you afraid that what happened in the past might make you worry about the present?" No. The past taught me lessons, but it's no longer my chain. I just move forward. Because the future is worth far more. That evening, as I sat on the balcony overlooking the city's bright lights, Colin set a warm cup of herbal tea beside me. He sat down and took my hand. Do you feel at peace now? I think I finally truly let it go. Everything that belonged to the past is at rest. Colin smiled gently, kissing my hair. I'm here always to help you write the next chapter. And in that moment I knew I had completely stepped out of the shadows of the past, ready for a full future, with the brightest things ahead. Looking back on everything I'd been through, I understood that sometimes life forces us to face brokenness to learn strength and grow. From a woman once lost in pain, I found myself again, building a new life full of love and meaning. The past was no longer a haunting, but a precious part of my journey that helped me treasure the happiness I have now. Today I live with gratitude, ready to face whatever challenges come, with my partner by my side and our little family. What do you think of Aubrey's story and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about family life.